Let's start with Michael Chandler clears the air around black children. Chandler has to face racist comments about his 2 children, and people also make wrong assumptions about it. But recently, Chandler clarified that he adopted these children. His family, including his wife Bree and their 2 adopted sons, Hap Whitaker and Ace, means the world to him. Listen to what Chandler said.
We're so similar in all the ways that matter. And you know, you get this question too, where it's like, well, hey, you're a white dude from Missouri living in Nashville. How are you going to raise black children? And my thought is, and it probably rubs people the wrong way, and it's probably the wrong answer that people want to hear, is I'm not raising black children. I'm raising children. I'm not raising black men, I'm raising men. And whether you are black or you are white, no matter what race that you are, there are certain things about being a man and being a good man when it comes to character and integrity and safeguarding the helpless and sticking up for those who need it and being a good man of reputation. None of that has to do with skin color. Everything has to do with the character of the man. And like I said, it's probably not an answer that some people would say is important, but that's where the world has gone, where we think that the most important thing about us is our skin color or our gender or our sex or our political affiliation or all these different identity politics or the identities that we put on each other, when really we're just human beings on this earth. And there are certain things about being a good person that transcend skin color and age and sex and religion and all of those different things.
I love that answer.
Jorge Masvidal says he got his biggest paycheck ever from the fight with Kamaru Usman. In a recent revelation, Masvidal shared that he made an astonishing $5 million for his UFC 251 fight against Kamaru Usman. This fight happened during the pandemic, and the UFC organized it on Fight Island to keep things going. Initially, Masvidal was supposed to fight Usman, but there were issues with negotiations, so Gilbert Burns got the title shot instead. However, Burns pulled out just 6 days before the event, and Masvidal was called in as a replacement.
And 6 days before the fight, the other route that they went with catches corona. And now the UFC calls me, and they need somebody that could fill in a 6-day notice, fly across the world, and cut 20 pounds of water in these 6 days and fight for a world title. And there's only one motherfucker in the whole world that could get that call for the bat signal, and that's this dude here. But I had to get paid, and I had to get paid very fucking handsomely for doing this. So they gave into all my demands that I had.
The most you ever made off a fight was $5 million. Was it that fight?
That's one of them. That's one of the fights that I made the most money, period. Because we ended up selling like right under 1.3 million pay-per-views. If I hadn't struck that deal with the UFC, I wouldn't have got nowhere near 5 million. I would have sold the same amount and got nowhere near 5 million. And I would have just felt like I got taken advantage of it. So part of me, the business side of me, the prize side of the fight was very, very much satisfied and happy, for my kids, for myself, my family. But the guy that always wanted that world title belt wasn't,
Michael Venom Page says he hates Colby Covington and would 100% fight him given the opportunity.
Oh, I hate this guy. I'm gonna be happy to kick this guy in the face.
Colby Covington.
Yeah. I find him fake. He just doesn't seem like a nice guy. And with all the stuff that came out last time about what fighters should and shouldn't be allowed to talk about with regards to people like going deep now. They're talking about each other's wives and mums and dads, and like he was very much into it, and I just didn't like that. I come from a martial arts background, so it's very. That's not the way we do things. I think he's trying too hard to stay relevant. As much as we are, a tough sport, we want to show that we're true sportsmen.
So given the opportunity, you'd like to fight Colby?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Colby Covington doesn't think Ian Garry is a strong opponent for his upcoming fight at UFC 303. It seems like Ian Garry's hopes of facing Colby Covington in the UFC might not happen. After his win against Jeff Neal, Garry has been focused on challenging Covington. He's been talking about it a lot, even saying he'd retire Covington if they fought at UFC 303. During a recent appearance on the Twins pod, Covington provided an update on his future plans as he looks to work his way to a 4th opportunity at reaching the 170-pound throne.
I'm gonna probably have to fight someone else to get back to him. So whoever, there's this kid that's been calling me out, this kid Ian Garry. He's a nobody. You know, I gave him some stipulations and said, hey man, if you want to fight me, you have to show me you're serious about business, because when I do business, I'm serious about it. Like I show up to every fight. I've never pulled out of one fight. I've been injured. I've been sick. I've been, you know, this, that, but I always show up and do my business because I love the UFC. It's the greatest organization on world. So he has to show me he's serious. He was supposed to be in the last fight in the press conference. He pulls out the day of the press conference because he knew I was going to be on stage and we were going to have, you know, some beef. So that shows me that he's not serious.
He didn't want you talking about his mama. He got too many skeletons in the club to go.
Yeah. See, look at this X-ray. That's, you see where it's broken?
Yeah.
3 different spots.
Oh wow.
Yeah. The midfoot fracture, median cuneiform bone. 3 different breaks on that bone. And I had to fight the whole fight, like 25 minutes in a world title fight, in the biggest moment and spot of my life. And I'm on one leg, you know.
If the ref would have known, they would have called the fight, huh?
Potentially, yeah. If I would have said something, oh, it's broken, they would have called it for sure. Those commissions are serious, so.
Yeah.
So,
Did you ever think like maybe I should just, you know, take the KO and just?
nah.
It's not in your mentality.
You know, Trump was there front row, and you know, I wanted to set an example for him. You know, and that was why I didn't want to come out after the fight and be like, make excuses like, oh, it's because the broken foot. You know, I swallowed it. I swallowed it with my pride, and I was like, you know what, on to the next. You know, and I wanted to also know for facts that it was actually broken, because in that moment you're like, it could be swollen, could be broken. Let me get the X-rays and find out first. So, you know, in that moment I was just honestly thinking of people like you, people that are military, that man, there's no days off for military. Oh, they have a hurt foot, they're still going to war, they're still going on the front lines. Like there's no war is, you know, it's there's no rules in war. Like if you're hurt, injured, doesn't matter. No one's gonna feel sorry for you. No excuses, no sympathy.
Jon Jones has been accused of touching a bisexual comedian inappropriately during a comedy show. Jon added another major controversy to his list, but the allegations are quite personal this time. Recently, comedian Def Noodles shared his side of the story about Jon Jones showing up drunk and heckling him. Dennis Faitosa, also known as Noodles, who owns the club, talked about how Jones was behaving inappropriately by touching another comedian while sitting with his partner. See what Noodles reveals.
That's what I imagined was happening. And I should add, before I actually got called up, I saw something pretty bizarre happening, okay? Because as I said, I was sitting in the back of the room, and I was observing Jon, and I was just kind of noticing his behavior, right? Because you got a heckler, you got a drunk person in the building, it's an open mic. We're a little more lax than, say, the Comedy Store or one of the big 3 comedy clubs when it comes to just heckling in general, because it's a bunch of, you know, comedians just, like, working out their... We don't give a usually, but... You know, if we have to, we'll kick you out, but we're a little more lax. But I was observing, and Jon had his arm around his girl, right? Who had, I guess, like a New Zealand type accent. But he was reaching over to a comic who was sitting there next to his girl, and he was touching him in ways that were not appropriate. And I was surprised, because the comic is bi. So he was, like, trying to move Jon's hands out of the way. But Jon, like, kept reaching over, and that's why I mentioned what I said on stage. When I got up on stage eventually, I said, well, you know, it seems like you're touching Mike, that's his name. You Mike fucks you, you know? Anyway, I finished my set, get off stage, the lights come up, and Jon is actually chatting with everybody and shaking hands and being very nice. I still didn't recognize him. I'm a UFC fan, but I didn't watch during the Jon Jones era. I'm Brazilian, so the recognizable faces for me are Royce Gracie, Vitor Belfort. But all that aside, Jon was very nice. He was very nice after the mic. He chatted with a bunch of comics. He went to high-five me, and I high-fived him back, and he did this with my hands. And I was like, okay, this man has some big hands. And then he left.